Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here on this Friday, and I cut a separate video with regards to Ophelia, and I covered a few things there. I'm going to expand on that a little bit here at the moment, and what I have pulled up here is the GFS model of the simulated satellite view. And we've been talking about the fact that this is going to go from being a tropical storm to a post-tropical or extratropical system. And you can see on this how this works. Now, the colors basically showing the higher cloud tops extending this sort of this column that's running down from the North Atlantic, just east of England and Ireland, right down to the south. And in that area of yellow and red, that circular area of yellow and red, is where we have the embedded system of Ophelia, which makes total sense. Okay, it's kind of caught up in this whole frontal zone that exists out just to the west of the coast of Western Europe. That's probably been the most difficult thing, by the way, is just kind of getting my bearings straight, because I'm always talking, I'm so used to talking in reference to the east coast of the United States that I know where west is west and east is east, and I'm kind of lost here. But watch what happens when it moves northward. You see how it becomes less and less of a separate entity and just sort of merges with that whole frontal system. And then notice, by the way, you start to get this comma look to it. This is more of a signature now of a non-tropical cyclone, or almost like a winter type cyclone. And the result of this, in terms of the expectations with regards to the kind of weather you will get out of this, is that the heaviest rains will fall north and west of where the circulation center is. And to the east of the circulation center, there will be very little rain, but there you would probably see the stronger wind. So I'm suspecting that if we wind up, again, track is going to be key, and at least with how the GFS kind of shows this, that dark blue spot just to the west of Ireland, the GFS has the surface low just offshore. So this would say that in terms of rainfall, there won't be all that much. But in terms of wind, there will probably be gales going on over Ireland and even along the west coast of England and on up into Scotland. And eventually that just kind of lifts up northward over northern Scotland, and from here it actually turns to the northeast and heads over to Norway and Sweden. And this is going to be, by the way, all happening during the daytime on Monday. Now I'm going to give you another different view here with all this. We're going to look at the wind. Actually, you know what? Before we look at the wind, let's look at the 24-hour accumulated precip out of all of this. And you'll notice, I'll back it up, and in fact, I can probably put the latest run, might be enough of the latest model run out that we can see this pretty well, but no, I guess not out far enough yet. Well, it should be. All right, let's try one other thing. Now this is also including precipitation that's falling right now, and there's some 4-inch plus amounts being shown up through parts of Scotland and eastern Ireland. But this is there's weather there at the moment, so we're going to have to subtract maybe 1 inch to 2 inches out of this. That's why I wanted to get that 24-hour precip. Let's try it again with the 24-hour precip, and there you see it. You see this the area that's out in the ocean here. That is Ophelia. So this is how the rain from Ophelia would set up, and it really isn't all that impressive. It's maybe 1 inch or 2, but you see where the darker blues are all out in the ocean because of this. The track of this is going to be on the GFS, at least just offshore. Now, if it goes along to the way the European has it, by the way, then you're talking perhaps the heavier rain area shifting westward. Now, looking at the wind, here is Ophelia as it approaches Ireland at noon on Monday, and right along the south coast in that purple area you see here, that's all 50, 60 knot winds in the whitish purple. And in the darker reds, it's all 40 to 50 knots. So all of that is going to be sweeping over Ireland if that's correct. If the European's correct, it's going to be even more of a wind event. The low center just touching the coast, gales into eastern Ireland and over into the western part of England, and even some gales on the eastern shores eventually as that low center moves up into Scotland. This is, by the way, on the new GFS run, and you can see that the low center weakens and then eventually goes into Norway and Sweden. Now, why this is all happening, by the way, has to do with the fact that we've got this deep trough out in the Atlantic, and Ophelia is responding to that. You can see there's a huge upper high that's over Italy and pushing northward up into Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And there's a southwest flow off Western Europe running from Spain all the way up to England. And there you see Ophelia now, there with the trough that's out in the North Atlantic, south of Iceland and Greenland, lifts it up and around and lifts it northeastward, right over Ireland, and then over Scotland, and then goodbye as it moves up into Norway and Sweden and gets absorbed by whatever system is going on up there. So, very interesting setup here. In terms of, again, I want to emphasize for you, and I'm getting messages from folks watching from the UK, in terms of what you can expect, the most important thing I think you need to pay attention to is the track. If the track of the surface low winds up being near, the western shore of Ireland or offshore, wind is going to be your bigger issue, rain less the case, and if at all, if the track winds up being further to the east, then we're going to be talking rain and wind. I think either way you're going to get wind out of this, and you could certainly see winds every bit of 40 to 60 knots with some higher gusts, particularly right along coastal areas of Western Ireland. It'll be also rather windy eventually in eastern, for the coastal areas between eastern Ireland and on up into the western coast of England, and then eventually we'll get some gales also up on the east coast. As of what I'm seeing right now, rain is probably less of an issue. It's where that track is, north and west of where the storm tracks, and that's where your heaviest rains are going to fall. And fortunately, this thing is moving, so that with respect to rain, it's not going to have a whole lot of time to put down some big rain amounts anyway. Plus, in that extratropical transition, it's not like you're getting a purely tropical system where you can wind up with a foot of rain falling in a big hurry. That's not going to be the case. The case here. So let's go back home. I want to show the upper air. There's been some talk, over the last 2 days about a possible pattern change as we get into the end of the month. And I mean, I do see some signs of it, but I'm not 100% sold with regards to whether this is going to happen or not. But you notice the big ridge here in the east eventually gets replaced early next week by a trough swinging through, so we get a shot of some real autumn Canadian air that comes in and goes out, because then another ridge is already there by the latter part of next week, with another deep trough approaching in the west. So at least through next week, nothing much is going to change. If anything is going to change, it'll be beyond that. And the other issue, of course, being with the California wildfires. So I want to get close up here and show you that we want to get some rain out of this. So let me just back this up for the weekend. As we turn very warm and humid into Sunday in the northeast and mid-Atlantic states. Cold front puts an end to that. Notice that the weather for the first part of next week across much of the United States, except the northwest, is pretty benign. And then we move into Wednesday and Thursday. That's when it looks like something stronger may come in and bring some rains into Northern California for Thursday into Friday. So let's hope that that is the case. In fact, by Friday, we've got rain and snow up and down the west coast, even rain as far south as Los Angeles, if this is right. So let's hope that this is the case. If the models are correct with that ridge in the east, trough in the west scenario, then there's some hope that there will be some rain for the second half for the latter part of next week in the west. I'm going to back up one run. So we have the earlier GFS run here, and I'll go back to the upper air so we can take a look at the overall pattern. And we'll put up to 500, upper air. Okay, so there's your ridge in the east, and you'll notice that that ridge holds firm. We're now into October 23rd, and then eventually it does want to bring some troughing down. Looks like the pattern is trying to align differently, but you know, today's run was not nearly as dynamic as the last two runs before that. Now that doesn't mean that it's right, but there have been a number of runs that have tried to show a change in the day 10 to 16 beyond the 2-week time frame. So let's say day 13 to 16 and beyond. That maybe something might be changing, but I want to see it happen first before I jump off the deep end here and start pointing out a pattern change. Let's look at Ophelia. I don't know, in my mind I keep thinking I'm saying Maria. I hope I'm not. But here's Ophelia. Is starting to accelerate. It really started moving at a fairly decent clip to the northeast. Top winds are still 100 miles an hour. You can still pick out the eye here as it runs along. It's going to pass close to, but probably just south of the Azores first before it makes that turn up the coast. Again, very unusual to see something like this come up toward England from the south rather than coming in from the west. Usually they come in from the west or the southwest. This is coming up almost from the straight south. So I'll be curious to see what kind of different impacts it might have. Perhaps because of the fact that it's rare. I'm not sure what the history is with regards to tropical systems that far east. I was told that this may be one of the strongest system. This may wind up being the strongest hurricane observed this far into the eastern Atlantic, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Here's our satellite view here of the northeast, and you can see the clouds here. In spite of what looks like a lot of moisture, it really is a lot of this is all at the bottom of the atmosphere. When you look at the top of the atmosphere above 4,000 feet here in the northeast, it's pretty dry. So it's a lot of low clouds here that are being shown. There's some a little bit more moisture coming in over the western lakes with the next cold front, and there you can see where there are some showers. So we're going to let me bring you guys up here into the conversation, and there I am. Okay, and let's go to the live chat as we take a look at, give a big collective hello to everybody. So I hope everybody's had a great Friday. Father Simeon Parsons is on. I haven't seen you, Father. Good to see you on. And Murtha's here, and Michael Bologna's here, James CIP, and all of you, a big collective hello. David Schwartz about the model showing the pattern shift. Yes, but I want to see it for a few more runs before I drink the Kool-Aid here. Some of the runs have actually showed some blocking developing, but I have to tell you, going back to last winter, it would show blocking a number of times on successive runs, and then it would not happen. So I'm going to be very skeptical. I'm going to be skeptical. I'm going to be cautiously skeptical for the time being with regards to this. If Ophelia, if Ophelia travels up through the center of Ireland, will the gales have enough strength to cause catastrophic damage as we've seen in Florida? She-Gadget, if it, let's say, does what the European does and cuts the island in half, there'll probably be wind issues. I think the best way to compare this will be probably to a strong North Atlantic storm. By the time it gets to you, by the time it gets to the UK, I think it would have already made the transition over into a non-tropical system or a winter-type cyclone. Albeit it could be a strong one as it approaches Ireland, and there could be winds every bit of 50 or 60 knots. I don't think you would have catastrophic damage from 50 or 60 knot winds. That to me seems a little bit actually it probably seems a lot overstated. But you know, the incidence of storms like this being so rare, it's hard to fall back on a prior experience and figure out what's going to happen. So I think the best way to approach this is just think of this as a rather strong winter type storm, and how you would handle that, a strong low that comes up out of the North Atlantic. Okay, I don't think it's going to hold on to its tropical characteristics that far north. The ocean is too cold. The only thing I want to be careful of, and I guess I should make this point, the only thing I want to be careful of is that as it makes this transition to an extratropical storm, it is going to be able, there is a lot of energy in the upper atmosphere with that trough swinging around, so it may actually be able to strengthen a little bit and become a rather strong Atlantic type cyclone. So you might want to pay attention to that. James CIP, the super chat icon. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder what happened to it. It's not here. Very odd. I have to figure something out. I'm not sure why it's not there, but no matter. We'll see what happens. We'll try and get it back. It doesn't have to be on every single one. But I'm in the middle of changing a couple of things with one of the networks I'm on, so they may be working on something. Last few runs getting cold, is 99 Wolves saying in the Midwest. It's possible that Chicago will get snow by the end of this month. Okay, you know what? This is how we're going to look at that. Let's get it to turn cold first before we start thinking about whether there's going to be any snow. It's got to get cold first. And you're going to see models do squirrely things, and I'm not going to put too much faith into it. Thank you, Father Simeon. I really appreciate it, what you say. I know you must have your hands full, but I appreciate that you have me in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you. See the last few runs. Okay, next hurricane season will be less active. Well, I got to tell you, considering what we've seen so far this year, to have a repeat performance would be a pretty odd thing. But who knows? We're not even done with this one yet. You know, I'm always struck by how everybody is always so kind of looking out 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. Let's focus on a week from now and 10 days from now. Let's focus on that rather than think about what's going to happen a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, because there's no way for me to give you an answer. If I tell you, if from your question, I'm not belittling your question, don't get me wrong, okay? So I want to make that clear. But if I give you the answer that says, you know, next hurricane season's going to, and I say absolutely yes, what are you going to do with that piece of information? And you still have to wait a year for it to happen. So there's really no way I could give you an answer to something like that. All right, so look, folks, I have a busy evening here, so I got to get a few things done. We'll be updating you this weekend on Ophelia and its impact on the UK and perhaps areas to the north and east of there as well. We'll do that over the weekend, along with keeping an eye on what the weather pattern is going to be for next week and beyond. Maybe models are going to start zeroing in on a bit of a change, and we'll get rid of this ridge in the east, trough in the west setup that we've had. So we'll keep an eye on that. And of course, look for latest website posts on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. And also, you can go to my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Cioffi, for all the latest on that. And a big hello, by the way, once again, and thank you for being here. And of getting messages from those of you from the UK, by all means, you know, join the conversation. Thank you for being here. You can check me out on Facebook, send me whatever messages, or if you have questions, you can private message me from my Facebook weather page. We'll see you on Saturday.